You've learned to spot the hype, and yet, something still makes you reach for that item in the market that says all natural. Or wonder if maybe you should try that 5,000-year-old remedy everyone's talking about. Today, we figure out why our brain does this, and more importantly, how to vaccinate yourself against it so that the health decisions you make are the right ones. Welcome, men of one nation, my dear listeners, to episode 67, Vaccinate Yourself Against Health Hype, Why We Get Fooled, and the toolkit to avoid it. It's hard to believe we've been at this together for 67 episodes now. It makes me so happy when I see that almost every day, many folks are listening to my first episodes, which means they likely just learned about my podcast and are starting from the beginning. If you can tell a few folks about Live Long and Well, I'd be so happy and appreciative. In the 66 episodes so far, we've covered a lot. We've talked about why there's so much hype in the health space, how the wellness industry has a solution to all your problems. We've talked about why headlines don't tell the whole story and sometimes tell the opposite story. And we've done our share of myth busting. Things you were told you absolutely had to do, like take these supplements. Things you were told would wreck your health, like seed oils. And in most cases, the real answer turned out to be a lot more nuanced than whoever was selling you something wanted you to believe. So here's what I want to ask you. After all of that, why do we still fall for the allure? Because you do. I do. We all do. You're in the grocery store and you pick up something that says all natural on the label. And something just relaxes a little. It's all natural. It must be good for me. Or you're reading something and it says this remedy has been used for 5,000 years by millions of people. And part of your brain goes, okay, that many people, that much time, there's got to be something there. Even when you likely know better. So that's what today is really about. Not just what those headlines or social influencers are saying to convince you. Today, I want to really get into what's happening on our end, in our brains. The reason these claims feel so convincing, even when the evidence isn't there. How we form opinions, and why certain arguments just feel true when we act before we've had a chance to think it all through. And here's what I want you to take away. It's not a flaw. It's not that you're gullible or uneducated. This is biology. And as they say, it's a feature, not a bug. How human brains were built. The wellness industry just happens to be very, very good at exploiting it. Not just those who are selling things, but also well-meaning writers of news headlines and the articles they prepare. So today we name it. And once you can name it, you can combat it or vaccinate yourself against those quick, often faulty decisions. Let me explain what triggered this episode. Gail and I run Madrone Springs Ranch in Dripping Springs, Texas. Take a look if you're interested. It's an exotic animal ranch and bed and breakfast, kangaroos, alpacas, antelope, all kinds of animals. And we have 3 Vizslas, wonderful dogs. So I took Flair, Milo, and Maggie for their annual checkup with Dr. Garcia. And every year, without really thinking much about it, we've given them a rattlesnake vaccine. We're out on 170 acres of Texas hill country. The dogs run through the grasses constantly. They've been bitten before and survived. And I've always credited the vaccine for that survival. Well, Dr. Garcia tells me that some vets stopped using the snake vaccine. The reason? When vaccinated dogs got bitten, some actually seem to do worse. And evidence that it worked in the first place, well, it's just not there. And here's what I did with that information. I ordered the vaccine anyways. I'm a physician. I have a PhD. I've spent my career in evidence-based medicine. I've published 180 peer-reviewed papers. I just spent 66 episodes teaching you how to think critically about health claims. And my vet, who I trust, just told me the evidence doesn't really support this vaccine. And I didn't even really pause before saying, let's give it to them anyways. Why? Well, the vaccine seemed to have helped my dogs in the past. Why change what's working? And the mechanism made sense. You're building antibodies. The body learns to fight the venom. That should work, right? Except there are no randomized controlled trials here. No real data. Just my feeling that it helped. A plausible biologic story and a strong wish not to change something that felt like it was working. It wasn't until later, driving home, that I caught myself. I hadn't listened carefully to what Dr. Garcia said. I hadn't asked good questions. I had just reacted instantly. And I thought, if I can fall for this mental trap, after everything I know, after everything I've taught, then this is worth an episode. Because at that moment in the vet's office, that's exactly what we're talking about today. That pull you feel towards a decision before your brain has actually done the work. That's not ignorance. That's just how we're wired. Today, we're going to explore 3 examples to help us understand these critical issues. First, the hugely advertised supplement AG1 and the natural ingredients that seem like they must be good for you. Second, ancient Chinese remedies that feel validated by time. And finally, detox products that exploit fear of toxins. Before I get into these examples, I want to make sure we're working with the same vocabulary, because there are 2 distinct things happening every time a health claim draws you in. First, the logical fallacy. A logical fallacy is a flaw in the argument in itself, in what is written or spoken. It's not about whether the person is lying or honest or well-meaning. The reasoning is just broken. Think of it like a math error. 2 + 2 = 5. The equation looks right. The person giving you the answer means well, but the answer is wrong. Logical fallacies have been studied and named for centuries. Things like appeal to authority or appeal to nature. The key thing to understand is that a logical fallacy is about them, the person sharing the information, and their argument. Their argument has a fallacy or flaw. They create the pull, whether they know it or not. Now for the second concept, the cognitive bias. Cognitive bias is a problem in how you process the argument. It's not about the claim, it's about your brain. The shortcuts your mind uses as it hears the information and quickly processes it. Cognitive biases are not character flaws. Every single person has them. Researchers have them. Doctors have them. I clearly have them. Back to my dogs. Every year they got the vaccine. They survived snake bites. In my mind, the vaccine must have worked. But what if they would have survived anyways? I was connecting two things in sequence and assuming one caused the other. So we need to understand both the logical fallacy or the flaw in the argument and the cognitive bias that our mind creates. If you only know the logical fallacy, you can spot the flawed but compelling argument, but you'll still feel drawn to it. If you only know your cognitive bias, like you prefer life stability or you generally believe experts, you understand why you're vulnerable, but you don't know which arguments to watch for. You need to see both psychological concepts, and to spot them, you need to ask two questions. What's creating that pull? And why am I drawn to it? Let me repeat that. What's creating that pull? And why am I drawn to it? The logical fallacy answers the first. The cognitive bias answers the second. And once you can answer both, that's your vaccination. To bring these concepts home, I want to walk through three examples which touch on specific logical fallacies and specific cognitive biases. First example, AG1, a really popular nutritional supplement. If you listen to podcasts, watch YouTube, or follow almost anyone in the health space, you've seen it. Green powder, 1 scoop a day, everything your body needs, 1 drink, done. Now, I'm not here to tell you that AG1 will hurt you. What I'm here to tell you is that the way it's marketed is drawing you in. Here's what AG1 says. 50,000 verified 5-star reviews. #1 doctor recommended, backed by leading research and trusted by leading scientists and athletes. Hugh Jackman takes it. Andrew Huberman takes it. Well, frankly, I'm convinced already. And the ingredients? Vitamins, minerals, mushrooms, licorice root, ashwagandha, beetroot, pre- and postbiotics, carrot, cocoa bean, ginger, grapeseed. Boy, that sounds powerful. But every element on their website or in advertisements is targeted to trigger a specific reaction in your brain. Here are a few. Broken argument or logical fallacy #1. Appeal to nature. Every AG1 ingredient sounds like something from a garden or a forest. The implicit argument, natural equals safe. Natural equals effective, what your body needs. But really, natural tells us very little. Arsenic's natural. Cobra venom's natural. And on the flip side, statins, some of the most thoroughly proven drugs in cardiovascular medicine. Decades of randomized controlled trials, hundreds of thousands of lives saved. Completely synthetic. Despite the evidence, patients often resist these drug treatments because they aren't natural. And then they happily take red yeast rice or CoQ10 based upon almost no credible evidence. So watch out for the appeal to nature fallacy. You'll find it everywhere. Broken argument or logical fallacy number 2. Appeal to authority. Number 1 doctor recommended. Hugh Jackman and Andrew Huberman swear by it. Credentials and fame substituting for evidence. Andrew Huberman is generally knowledgeable about neuroscience, but that expertise doesn't really transfer to every ingredient in a green powder. But it sure seems convincing at some level. So be wary when you're drawn towards what experts say. So those are some of the logical fallacies. On to the cognitive biases. First, the halo effect. I mentioned the appeal to authority argument or flaw. But what in our brain is susceptible to that argument? That would be the cognitive bias that lurks within us. When someone is impressive in one area, your brain automatically grants them authority across all areas. So the halo goes beyond just that person's area of expertise. Hugh Jackman is disciplined, fit, and famous. His halo, without you choosing it, potentially to whatever he endorses. It's part of cognitive dissonance theory. Like the man, like what he says. Andrew Huberman knows neuroscience deeply. That expertise feels like it covers everything he recommends. The halo effect does its work before your rational brain has a chance to weigh in. You want that AG1 solution that these folks swear by. Second, social proof. The logical fallacy that there are 50,000 five-star reviews hits that part of your brain that hears what others are doing and follows the proverbial herd. Your brain looks at what large number of other people are doing as a signal for what you should do. 50,000 five-star reviews isn't just a number. It feels like a verdict. They can't all be wrong. This is deeply wired. Following the group was usually the smart move for most of human history. Well, today, it moves a lot of green powder. Now that we can see the fallacies and the biases, what do? Ask these questions. First, what's the evidence supporting the claim? Second, what's the specific expertise of the endorsers, and does it actually apply here? Third, just because many people buy it, what does that really mean? That it works, or that the marketing is really good? To vaccinate ourselves against this hype, we have 3 steps. First, name the fallacies in the argument being made. Second, name the biases that naturally live in our brain. And third, ask questions. That's your validation. Here's example 2 that feels ancient and wise. Traditional Chinese medicine and the time fallacy. Chinese medicine goes back thousands of years, acupuncture and herbal remedies. And let's look at one herbal remedy, turmeric. Capsules, powders, even lattes and skincare. The marketing almost always tells the same story. Turmeric has been used in Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine for over 5,000 years to reduce inflammation, support joints, promote longevity. Message is clear. Elders figured this out a long time ago. Who are we to argue? And something in you responds to that. That many people, that much time, they must have figured something out. And that is broken argument or logical fallacy number 1. Appeal to antiquity. Age equals proof, so it seems. 5,000 years of use means 5,000 years of validation. But bloodletting was practiced for over 2,000 years by mainstream medicine and respected practitioners of each era. It nearly killed George Washington. Mercury was used as medicine for centuries. Lobotomies were standard of care not that long ago. Time doesn't validate things. Things persist for many reasons, like tradition, religion, and habit, not necessarily because they work, because they often don't. For decades, we were told to eat fewer eggs. That turned out to be bad advice. Well, back to turmeric. Its potential anti-inflammatory mechanism seems compelling, but clinical trial after clinical trial has failed to show meaningful benefit, in part because curcumin, the key element in turmeric, has very poor bioavailability. Your body barely absorbs it. Despite the long history in Chinese medicine, evidence that it works is lacking. So keep your eyes open when you hear that argument that it's been around for hundreds of years. Broken argument or logical fallacy number 2, post hoc ergo propter hoc, a fancy Latin way of saying, after this, therefore, because of this. Here's the argument and the fallacy. Sally starts taking collagen. Her joint pain got better. Therefore, the collagen fixed it. But joint pain comes and goes. People seek treatments when pain is at its worst, which means almost anything they try might be followed by improvement. Pain naturally regresses towards its average. That's regression to the mean. The collagen came first. The improvement came second. The brain connects them and calls it cause and effect. Post hoc, ergo propter hoc. Now, this is exactly what happened with my dogs. Got the vaccine, survived the bite. Vaccine worked. The sequence felt like proof. Probably it wasn't. Watch out for this cause and effect logical fallacy. Now, for what our brain does with those arguments, the cognitive biases that help convince us. First, pattern seeking. I took it, I got better. Your brain connects those dots automatically. In a simple world, eat that berry, get sick. This connects the dots. Instinct saves lives. And we feel uncomfortable if we can't find a connection to what happens in our lives. In a complex system like human health, with dozens of variables changing simultaneously, this pattern seeking can lead us in the wrong direction. Second, narrative bias. A grandmother's remedy passed down through generations. A memorable story. It has characters, my grandma and her sisters. It has an arc of time as the story unfolds, and maybe a bit of drama. Your brain tends to weigh stories far more heavily than a table of statistics. Not because you're foolish, but because that's how human cognition works. Stories feel true in a way that data simply doesn't. I had a colleague who advised me on public speaking. She said, data makes you credible. Stories make you memorable. Watch out when stories begin to draw you in. What's our vaccination against this narrative and pattern-seeking process? Ask yourself, well, what else changed at the same time? Sally felt better. Could this be regression to the mean or placebo? Name the logical fallacy in the argument. Name the cognitive bias in ourselves. Ask the questions. That's your vaccination. Final example, detox cleanses, the false certainty fallacy. 3-day juice cleanse, 21-day reset, activated charcoal detox, colon cleanse. The core message is almost always the same. Your body has accumulated something harmful, and the supposedly scientifically designed product you hear about will remove it. The toxins will be gone, and your symptoms will be gone, and you'll feel more energetic, clearer, and lighter. It's a $5 billion a year industry, built almost entirely on a single word that has no agreed upon medical definition: toxins. Think about that. When was the last time you saw a detox product that told you specifically which toxin it removes by name, with a before and after test showing the levels went down and the symptoms improved in a validly measured and controlled way? Doesn't happen. To understand what's going on, let's look at the first logical fallacy or broken argument, the toxin fallacy. As I shared in podcast 29 on total body detox, your body already has a detoxification system. Your liver and kidneys, they run 24 hours a day. When they actually fail, it's pretty obvious and you end up in the ICU. No juice cleanse can do what a functioning liver does. Not even close. And if you could name the specific toxin you're worried about, medicine likely has an evidence-supported specific treatment for it. The vague toxin claim exists precisely because being specific would allow us to quickly debunk the theory. Broken argument and logical fallacy number 2, the root cause fallacy. Detox products often come paired with the second claim that toxins or some other single underlying imbalance are the root cause of everything wrong with you. The fatigue, the brain fog, the digestive issues. You'll also see this in functional medicine. Adrenal fatigue, leaky gut, chronic viral infection. One cause, one fix. I talked about this in my recent episode. Now for our biases. First, disgust response. This is one of the oldest human emotions, a deep, immediate reaction to contamination and things that shouldn't be inside your body. The word toxins activates that immediate response. And once you feel contaminated, the desire to cleanse feels urgent and right in a way that's very hard to reason your way out of. Next, simplicity bias. Your brain finds ambiguity really uncomfortable. A clear, simple explanation, even a wrong one, feels better than honest uncertainty. When someone says, this is your root cause, your brain experiences something close to relief. The mystery resolves. That feeling of certainty is so satisfying, it can override careful evaluation of whether the answer is actually correct. So what do you ask? For detox, what specific toxin by name are they targeting? And how will you measure and monitor it? Can we do an N of 1 assessment? How does this product specifically remove the toxin? Has the proposed treatment been shown in controlled trials to resolve the symptoms? Ask yourself, am I responding to the relief of having an answer or to actual evidence that the answer is correct? Those two things feel identical from the inside. Only one of them is real. Let's step back for a moment. 3 examples, AG1 and the natural ingredients that feel like harmony. Ancient remedies that feel validated by time. And detox products that exploit toxin fear and the relief of a single root cause. Different products, different claims, same two-layer structure every single time. A broken argument or logical fallacy, and a brain wired to find it convincing because of our natural inborn cognitive biases. These errors happen to researchers, to physicians, to people who have spent careers studying this phenomenon, and clearly to me. The answer is not to run from every instinct. Your intuitions are often right. The answer is to build just a moment of pause into the process, just enough to ask two questions before you act. What's creating the pull? Is there a logical fallacy hiding behind what I hear? And why am I drawn to it? The cognitive bias. That sequence creates just enough distance between the feeling and the decision for your rational brain to catch up. You can't stop your disgust response from firing when someone says toxins. You can't stop Hugh Jackman's halo from doing what halos do. But you can notice it happening, and noticing, naming it, is the vaccination. 3 questions to remember every time a health claim starts to draw you in. Question 1, what's the pull? Which fallacy is at work in the argument being made? Appeal to nature, appeal to authority, appeal to antiquity, correlation as causation, mechanism as proof, or cherry-picked evidence. You don't need the Latin. Just identify the broken step in their reasoning. Question 2, why am I drawn to it? Which biases within me are firing? The halo around a familiar face, the comfort of a crowd, the relief of a simple answer, the pattern your brain just connected, and the confirmation bias. Do I just want this to be true? Question 3, what does the evidence actually say? Not the mechanism, not the testimonials, not the tradition. Is there a randomized controlled trial, more than one? Have independent researchers replicate it? What does the totality of evidence show? You now have a complete toolkit. I hope that it helps you. Until next time, this is Dr. Bobby, your open-minded skeptic who reads a whole lot of studies so you don't have to. Be well.